Welcome to the Don't Pick the Scab podcast with the premise of connecting men over 40 with the tools and community to thrive in their divorce recovery either before, during, or after a divorce.
Welcome, Barbie, out there today to the show, Don't Pick the Scab podcast. I'm thrilled to welcome a true innovator in workplace well-being and support, the president of Divorce Right Incorporated, with a passion for making one of life's toughest transitions less isolating. My guest leads a company dedicated to helping HR departments and employees navigate divorce with dignity, empathy, and practical support. And we'll talk about that as the driving force behind a groundbreaking EAP supplement program. They've assembled a team of over 20 specialized divorce coaches, each armed with unique certifications and real-world experience. Their mission? To save companies time, money, and energy by reducing the massive productivity losses up to 40% per individual per year for 5 years. That's a lot. That often follow a breakup. By offering tailored resources, sensitive HR training, and mentorship, Divorce Right Incorporated is changing the corporate landscape, ensuring no employee has to go through divorce alone. Please join me in welcoming a leader who's reshaping how we support each other through life challenges, and her new love, definitely. All right.
Okay.
Welcome to the show. Tell us a bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Oh gosh. Well, since we talk about divorce, I've been through it myself a couple of times. And, being that I had done it before, spending over $100,000, something that I can't even explain. I'm a pretty smart girl, right?
Yep.
And I still screwed it up. And knowing now what if I knew then what I know now, I'd be about $100,000 richer. And so, I looked at this, crazy process that has become just the norm. The fact that we even say they lost the house in the divorce and that that's okay, right? That they filed bankruptcy, they're homeless, they're on food stamps, they're on a WIC program. All of that stuff to me, because of divorce, is just nonsensical. So I developed a company based upon my experience. I've been in the divorce industry for now over 20 years. I've had my own coaching practice. And then I started a company called the National Association of Divorce Professionals, where my goal was to, help the professionals understand that decisions they were helping their families make over here were impacting them over here. And they would have no resources left to move forward and move on. So I worked with the licensed professionals. And in doing that, I learned that the cost of divorce, not only to that couple, but on our country, on our company's bottom lines, on our government agencies, is astronomical. And when I say astronomical, it's more than $1 billion a day in lost productivity. $1 billion a day. So it's a war. It's the cost of a war caused by divorce. So I'm here as a disruptor. I'm here as somebody that says there's a better way to do this. And with the total mission is to give that family resources in their own bank accounts so that they don't have to, they can start a new life in a different way with being able to move on.
Well, can you walk us through some of the biggest productivity challenges divorce brings to the workplace?
Well, in the workplace, the first one is that a divorcing employee takes about 50% more paid time off. And that can last for 3 to 5 years. So why? Meetings with attorneys, got to go to the bank, unexpected child care arrangements, right? Just also curling up on the couch and not being able to move, right? Going through a divorce also weakens your immune system. So you have more sick days. I mean, there's so much that just in the paid time off that happens.
What are some common misconceptions that HR departments have about supporting employees through divorce?
Well, first of all, this is a lousy conversation, right? This is a horrific
Yeah, it is.
conversation.
Definitely.
And being in HR, you can't necessarily walk up. You can't. You can't walk up to somebody and go, "Hey, are you going through a divorce?" You just can't. So there's definitely ways that we have. We actually have a whole training program on training HR people how to recognize the signs and then get them the support they need and then stay in compliance. But I think that we're getting to the point now where if you don't, more of your employees are going through a divorce than have cancer, right? This
Yeah.
is a big problem. 3 to 5% of your employees at any given time are either in the starting one, in the middle of one, or just ending up with one. So it's not insignificant on the company, and being able to support them through it makes them a better employee. And I'll tell you another expensive cost of a divorcing employee and letting them just kind of go through this by themselves
Mhm.
without support is that 10% of them quit. That's a big freaking expense to replace a valuable employee.
It is.
Okay?
I'm going through that right now.
Are you seriously? Yeah. So I mean, it's unbelievably I mean, so we talked about, my love is, one of the industries that I'm in, replacing one of these people costs about $150,000. Right. So, another thing that happens with divorcing employees that can be very expensive to employers is that they're 4 times more likely to make a critical error. Imagine having a surgeon that is going through a divorce, right?
Yeah.
Or, these first responders that I work with, or anybody where, military, right? A critical error can cost lives. When I do a critical error, it's because I've replied all to an email, right? When they do it, it's a different
Oh, yeah,
story.
it's a different scenario.
It's a,
Yeah. How does Divorce Right Incorporated tailor its approach to different companies and cultures or
yeah.
industries? Like
Well,
generally, how would you tailor that to different?
so we actually I've actually created a much bigger and broader company that supports families first through an HR benefit. And it's really about supporting an employee's home life because it's impossible not to be able to have their home life impact their work life and vice versa. So it was funny. I was invited to a chaplain's event in Maryland and a while back. And I had these guys, these chaplains come up to me and they go, Lena, yes, we get it. We understand that we don't know about the process of divorce, but do you have someone that can help us save marriages? And at the time, I was so focused on that divorce piece that I was like, I'm here for the traffic accident. I'm not here for the driving lesson. Right. But I kept hearing it, right? I was hearing it over and over and over again that this was a real need. So I went out into the marketplace, I did some research, and I found the best company that's out there with a digital program. It's called Our Relationship. It's being used by the Department of Defense because the only ones that have the highest divorce rate is our military.
Yeah.
So it's been used by them. It is a digital program that you can go through from the comfort of your living room. You can do it on these things, right? You can do it on a Sunday morning at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want to. You don't have to make an appointment and spill your guts out to a stranger sitting across the table from you and, perhaps even feeling like you're judged because of it. So it actually has the same exact success rate as in-person marriage counseling at a fraction of the cost,
Because
same result. So 91% of the people that have gone through it said that it improved their communication, their connection, and their sex life. And if you can't talk, that whole sex life thing, if that's not enough to get you to do it, I don't know what is. So it's all about helping them. Let's try and help them improve that part of their life if that's possible. As a matter of fact, we believe it to be a preventative, so much so that the state of Texas, if you and I are getting married, David, and we go through this program and show them our certificate of completion, we get, I think it's an 80% discount on our marriage license fees. So that's how the state of Texas looks at this and says, yes, this can prevent the need for me. Right now, the statistics are that 50% of couples end up divorced within 2 years from seeing a marriage counselor. Anecdotally believe that it's because of, they waited until somebody walked through the door and said, I want a divorce. And it's really hard to walk back from that.
Yep.
Really
Yeah,
hard.
once you pull that trigger, it's hard to go backwards.
Yeah, it's
It
really
is.
hard. I read something the other day. It said something, your marriage isn't in danger when your wife is, bitch moaning and complaining. Your marriage is in real danger when she stops, right? Women show pain with silence. And I find that to be very true. So when she stopped, she's not talking to you. Why aren't you around? This is what I need. She's telling you what she needs. If you don't answer, then she's just done.
She's in planning phase, man. She's planning. She's getting her ducks in a row.
She's tried and she's tried. 70% of divorces are filed by women. So um she kind of holds the key, and if people would understand that she's trying to tell you something for a long time, and it could go both ways, right? This is not specifically limited to women, but it's like I said, 75% or 70%, sorry, of all divorces are filed by women. I think that their partners just have to, when she's, blah, 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 it's because she's trying to tell you that this is what she needs. And when you, after time again, when you're done, when she's done, it's over. So bringing her back as a challenge. So 50% of the time, so we want them to go through Our Relationship program if they will. Not all of them will. If they need to go through a divorce, we want to help them go through it with some dignity, some compassion. We want them so that, they can still co-parent their children effectively, right? It's very important. We always consider their children to be the most important part of this whole puzzle, right? Forget, it's not just their finances. It's how do we handle the children? But so our goal is to get them through that process in a kind as gentle manner as possible, giving them the resources in their bank accounts and not in ours. And then lastly, there's two more things that we brought to the table, which because children of families that are in conflict, they suffer from not only like academic decline, right? Lowering grades, and behavioral issues at home and at school, but they also, in the bigger picture, a child in a conflicted household is at greater risk for drug use, alcohol abuse,
Wow.
high risk behaviors, teen pregnancy, anxiety, depression.
Everything.
Wait, what? A couple more. Incarceration and
Okay.
suicide. Partnered with another company called Peace at Home Parenting with a library of about 1,500 videos and articles on everything about parenting your child, right? It really, this stuff also has, how to potty train your toddler, how to, handle separation anxiety, or, how to handle a picky eater. But it also deals with the emotional problems, how to support and help a child, and how to be a better parent when your children are suffering this way. So it's a searchable library, academic excellence, child psychologists, child psychiatrists. What else is there? We've got behavioral experts, developmental experts, anything you can think of to help parents parent better during that time. And then the last thing we have is an AI app that acts as like a coach in your pocket. And our stuff doesn't happen Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, when your therapist is open, right? Our stuff happens at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday morning when that son of a bitch didn't come home, right? That's what happens, right? So you can grab this, you can talk to it. It sounds like you're talking to, a real person, which is a little on the creepy side, but it allows you to just get it out. And what I love about this app is that it'll take the notes from your session and connect them to your therapist. So your therapist is prepared on the following Thursday and says, oh, what happened on Saturday at 2 o'clock in the morning? Let's talk about that. So it gets everybody prepared. And it's also just this amazing outlet. It's not therapy, but it is support. It is that bridge between those appointments and an outlet for you.
So from the beginning to the end, basically.
It's
Yeah.
family first. We
Yeah.
are family first because we know
What
if we can try and work on that part, they'll show up to work and be a better employee, they actually perform better, their health is better, their mental health is better. So we've got some solutions for employers across the country.
at one point a couple of years ago, well, 15 years ago, I was going through divorce and my hygienist was going through a divorce, and man, it was tough.
Mhm. It
That
is.
was that was that was 50% of the office going
Yeah,
through crap.
it's funny. We're going for a grant for a fire department in Colorado, and we needed some of the paperwork. We needed them to provide some of the paperwork for us,
Hmm.
and part of the problem was they hadn't done their taxes for 2024 because we needed to have that um, to apply for this grant, and they were like, "Oh, he's in the middle of a divorce. He never got to it." And I'm like, "Well, A, why didn't we talk to him? Why didn't we, because sometimes things, get slipped through the cracks." But that was really important. And this was a grant for about $50,000 that we missed because they hadn't, because his divorce got in the way and he didn't file the taxes for the Benevolent Association. So
Wow. Something simple. So with all the people that you work with, what are some of the unique qualifications and backgrounds that your divorce coaches bring to the table, like financial,
oh gosh.
psychological? What are
Well,
some of the
since that bio that you read, we now have about 70 different divorce coaches. And why is that important? So we have former family law attorneys, former financial advisors, and former mental health counselors, right? So we've got that kind of covered, but there are other areas. Like right now, I'm working with 3 different families with special needs children. Why is it? First of all, families with special needs children divorce at higher rates. But also, since you and I have been chatting back and forth and connected on LinkedIn, there have been families in this country that have lost their government benefits because of a poorly crafted settlement statement. And that can be devastating for a family with a child that has, cystic fibrosis, cerebral palsy, a paraplegic, quadriplegic, you name it, severely autistic. These families need these benefits, and it can take about $25,000 in legal fees to get them back in about 18 to 24 months. So it's really important that we have some specialists in that area to help that family craft a settlement statement so they don't lose those benefits. And we have experts in religious divorces. So whether you need a Catholic annulment, a Christian covenant divorce, you need a Jewish get, a Muslim talik, all of those we have
so
somebody.
many parts, man?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, it can be.
Dang.
Have experts in prearranged marriages. Those are challenging to get out of. We have LGBTQ experts. We have experts with personality disorders and domestic violence. We have practically everything that I've been able to put together that can help a family at any time. We're not perfect, and because no divorce is the same. Not one is the same.
Yeah.
Everybody's, Susie next door got blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Susie next door's and your situation are 2 totally different things. And we're going to attack yours in a different way.
What do you suggest a small business under 5,000 people to do with the divorce that's in their business?
Well, you know
Either
what?
the boss
First of
or
all,
the
our program is really, really affordable annually, having annual access to all of that. Under 5,000, it's just as important that you support those employees. We don't have a minimum for how many. We work with departments that have, let's see, I think our smallest is 150. But we would do it for anybody, because 3 to 5% of your employees are going to go through this. They're in the middle of it right now, today, as you're listening to this. That you've got 3 to 5%, and again, that's more employees than will have cancer. But yet we have health insurance to get those people through a cancer treatments, right? But this is just something, we talked about it at the beginning. We're a really uncomfortable topic to have, but we're probably the most costly expense that you don't even know is happening. because it's very silent, right? Another very expensive part of a divorcing employee is distractions, right? They're in the middle of they're in the middle of a spreadsheet and their attorney calls or their financial advisor calls or their accountant calls and says, we need to do this for your taxes. All of those kinds of disruptions every day takes another 20 minutes to get back into that spreadsheet and be focused on that spreadsheet. Also, depending upon what it is, it could be sideways. It can be your ex saying, I'm not picking up the kids today from school. You got to figure it out. All of those kinds of distractions. The other one, Harvard Business Review said it's the most expensive thing that happens. It's the most costly expense to an employee that's going through these kinds of challenges. And that's presenteeism. And that's when you're physically there, but emotionally and mentally you're checked out. And it's hard to see because they're physically at their desk. They're physically doing they're there. But they're not there. Do you know what I mean?
It's almost impossible to measure.
It is impossible to measure, but it's not impossible to see. So we train everybody on the signs of what a divorcing employee could look like, how to approach them, and then most importantly, just how to get them the support that they need. They need support, guys. I'm telling you, employers, one of the things that employers say is that it's not my business. But when you start to understand that they take more time off, right? That they've got distractions, they're 4 times more likely to commit a critical error. There's presenteeism, there's distractions, and 10% of them will quit. You start to realize this very much is my business. It very much is my business. And so when you bring us into this, whether our goal is to help them save their relationship, if that's possible, and by the way, you don't have to be married to have to go through these processes. If you're a family that has children together, right? You didn't sign a legal document for a marriage, but you're connected to each other through children, and there's child support and there's child custody matters. And maybe you have a side hustle together, or maybe you've bought a home together. All of those things have to still be figured out and done gracefully and elegantly and cost effectively. It's really easy. You've been through this process. It's really easy to spend money on this process. Yep. I got to tell you something. It's like, just get me out of pain. Take this money. And here I was $100,000 later going, help me how much do I have to write? Let me do this. Let's go. Another thing that happens in this process is, and I'm not saying all family law attorneys are like this, but there are family law attorneys that are out there that know how to subtly and very nuanced ways to stir up a pot when it doesn't even have to be stirred up, right? That there's no reason for it. A baby needs a new pair of shoes. Maybe the kids just got into Harvard or Stanford, or maybe they, want to upsize or downsize their homes, or maybe they want to take an expensive trip. All of those things, and it can be like back here in their minds, not even at the forefront that it happens. And so our average mediation is about 3.5 months. And it's up, somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000. The average divorce in this country is $25,000.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And if you're a C-suite executive and you don't have your mind on what's happening, and you don't have somebody to lock arms with you and go up that hill with you to help you make better decisions, because it's really easy to, it may make you feel better to fight. I cannot tell you how many people say, I don't care. And this happens, and I think we're going to talk about that in a minute, but with the cohort that I work with the most, which is our first responders, for them, if there's two ways it can go is give him everything, because they can't make one more decision, or I'm going to fight. I had a guy that was going to quit. He actually did quit, which had us all upset. We tried so hard not to, but he was so close to getting his pension. And his reaction was, I don't want her to have anything. So I will do whatever I have to do for her not to have anything. And you couldn't tell him he was cutting off his nose to spite his face. You couldn't reason with him.
Wow.
Mm.
You talk about the employer. What about support staff? How does your program involve support staff?
Everybody is covered when you go when we are with your company. There is not anybody that we ignore. No, but I mean, we have worked with companies that have purchased our products with unlimited coaching services for their C-suite executives. So we can do that, but everybody goes through it. And I will tell you, so some of the risks for divorcing employees is that lower paid and pe- lower paid employees have a higher risk of divorce. Finance is a big problem. So the less your support staff is paid, the more they need these services.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Wow. What role does mentorship play in your program, and how does it help employees recover?
So we have our divorce coaches, and many of them are also life coaches. Some of them are recovery coaches. And what we do is we have an intake form. We learn about all of the issues that you may face, right? Special needs children. Like I said, I personally am working with 3 different families, one of which is a special needs first responder himself. And, one is married to his wife is in a wheelchair and they have a special needs child. And then I'm working with another family whose child is profoundly autistic. And so we're helping them with all of the ramifications of all of this. So we are there as a coach, but we're not therapy, and
Hmm.
recognize that therapy is oftentimes needed. Fine. I look at us as a concierge for your employees in that I'll give you an example. Just before this, I was talking with a couple that works for a university that we work with, and bankruptcy is actually on the table. So we're going to help him find a bankruptcy attorney in his area that has expertise in bankruptcy and divorce. They need to figure out what they're going to do with their home that they're about $90,000 upside down on. We're going to help them with a financial advisor. We're going to help them find a realtor that can help them with this situation. Refinancing is an option. We'll help them find a mortgage broker that understands. That's another thing. Finding a mortgage broker that can help you write a settlement statement in the right way can give them about 20% more buying power.
Someone that has experience.
Yeah, it's how it's all written that matters. And so it's important to have those people on your team. And we have those connections. And it really came through the work I did with National Association of Divorce Professionals. We had chapters across the country. So I have connections in practically every state. And finding those people that aren't there to bleed you dry for money,
Mhm.
right? And cause that conflict or chaos, that actually want to help you get through it, are the connections that I've created and I want to have on my team. So, we have those people in place. So we offer, we are more than just mediators. We're more than just divorce coaches. We are a concierge service for your employees.
Gotcha. Let's go and switch gears to first responders, your new love. Let's talk about that.
Uh, I, you know, I was a lousy taxpayer. So I was in South Florida, I would be on I-95 and the traffic would be like dead stop, whatever that was. And all I was doing under my breath was, and cussing under my breath and, oh my God, I'm going to be late. I've got to call this person. I'm going to miss this thing. All of those things would go through my head, right? As I'm sitting there just waiting on I-95. And then when I finally would get to the accident and there was the fire truck and there was the police cars and the EMS vans and all of those people doing that stuff, all I did was think, oh, thank God I'm past it. Never once thinking about how they would never be past it. Those people. Coincidentally, when I was in South Florida, um, I had a mutual friend that was involved in the first responder space. She was the president of it's called the 300 Club or 100 Club. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it's a supporting 501c3 for first responders. And one of the chaplains there had come up to her and said, I've got 3 guys that are going through a divorce right now. And he goes, and he was a chaplain. He goes, I know how to save marriages. I just don't know what to do when they can't or shouldn't be saved. And she goes, I got your girl. And so I went to the first guy that I met. I met him at this lovely coffee shop on Las Olas Boulevard in Fort Lauderdale. If anybody's listening from Fort Lauderdale, Ann's Flowers, if you know that, on Las Olas.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there, and it's flowers everywhere. It's just beautiful. And this guy was sitting across the table from me, and he was literally kind of sitting like this. And I can't even explain how his face looked. Like, there was no musculature to his face. People call it a flat affect. I call it, he looked almost like a robot with skin on it. It was just, there was no other way. And he was just sitting there like this. And I always feel guilty. I don't know how you feel, but I always feel guilty when somebody comes to me to talk about this. I always feel guilty to say, hey, how are you? Right? Because I know if you're coming to see me, life is sucking,
Definitely.
right? So he sat there, and I had a blueberry muffin and a cup of coffee. And that's important to this story in a minute. He's just not saying, he's not engaging. He's not making eye contact, nothing. And I finally said, are you okay? And again, it was like silence. So I took a bite of my muffin and I had it in my mouth, and he goes, yeah, I just picked up a head off of I-95 from a traffic accident. And I went, the muffin hits the back of my throat, and my throat closed. And I'm going, I can't breathe. Can't breathe. This lady over here to the table to my right, she comes over, she lifts my arms up like this. The woman that she was having coffee with is rubbing my back while another man goes to the water bubbler and gets me a cup of water to drink. And the first responder across the table from me never even knew it was happening. And I was like, whoa. And finally, obviously, maybe some brain damage, who knows, from that lack of oxygen. But yeah, it was, I ugly cry, right? I'm like, got tears coming down my face. The next day, I went out to Weston, and I met with a man that had just pulled a toddler out of the bottom of a hot tub. And then about 2 weeks after that, I had my third meeting with a guy, and it was on his 50th birthday, had cut a crushed baby out of a car with the jaws of. And it suddenly occurred to me that, all those crosses you see along the sides of the roads, country roads or major roadway, right? And it's covered with, roses and all of those things.
Flowers, stuff.
A family lost a loved one there. But at every single solitary one of them, there was a police officer, an EMS, and a firefighter. And they cut that family out of their car, or they picked up their body parts, or they brought them to the hospital. And that doesn't not go home with them. They bring that home. And you'll hear a lot of people, they have to go home. They have this schedule of 24 on, 48 off for a couple of different reasons, including being able to detox from some of the chemicals they're with, but also so that they can just bring it down.
Yeah.
The statistics are that you and I will have 3 to 5 traumatic events in our lifetime. They have that in a single shift. So when I said that I was this lousy taxpayer, I didn't recognize what they sacrifice with their mental health. And it also impacts their marriages. With one of the country's largest fire departments, and they did an internal survey. They have a 68% divorce rate. They have a divorce every 30 hours. And they're actually increasing the size of their department. At the time I did my last training with them was in March. They had 10,000. Their goal is to get to 15,000 by the end of this calendar year, so in just a few months. And then they'll have a divorce every 18 hours.
So the more people, the more divorces.
Well, it's just statistics, right? Right. It's just numbers. I'm doing their calculations. What I did was 10,000 firefighters at a 68% divorce rate. That's 6,800. I divided that over a 25-year career span. right? Average. That's very reasonable. And that's 272 divorces a year using their numbers, not mine.
That's a lot.
272. Yes, it is. So they need our support. They need our help. And these are not guys, this is not Jeff Bezos. This is not, Bill Gates, right? These are hardworking individuals that most of them are volunteers, but some of them make very good money in bigger cities, but most of them don't. And typically they're married, they're married to kindergarten teachers or another far underpaid profession, in my opinion. But for them to go through this a few times can financially bankrupt them. And one other thing that I'd like to bring up here is that divorce and relationship breakups are a leading cause of suicide for these people, followed second by finances. And guess what? Those two are inextricably linked. I have a guy who's actually working for me now. He was a firefighter in the Seattle, Washington area. And he was like a man's man. He was the guy that taught you how to rappel from buildings and how to dive into canals to get people out of cars and how to use the jaws of life, right? And he went through second divorce. And again, very easy for them to say because they just don't, they do it alone and it's just doing it by themselves. It's just too much. And he said, give her everything. And he did. And he lived in his car for 2 years. He was homeless and living in his car for 2 years. One of our firefighters, because these guys, bless their hearts. I don't know if you and I ever talked this, but do you know why Steve Jobs used to just wear that black turtleneck and a pair of jeans?
Uh-huh.
He wore that because of decision fatigue. He didn't want to have to make one more decision because the more decisions you make during the day, the more at the end of the day, you just can't. Firefighters and police officers go home and they can't even decide what to have for dinner, right? And when you're going through a divorce, we're asking them to make some of the most critical decisions of their lives. And when they are overwhelmed and just crazy about this, they make really bad decisions. And then sometimes it's easier to take yourself out than to deal with the consequences of that. I had a firefighter from Colorado earlier this year called me with a gun in his mouth. Why? Because he had been divorced for about 4 or 5 years at that point. So it was before I was involved, but he had just opened his family law bill and $23,000, David. $123,000, $500,000.
That's ridiculous.
Well, we've gotten it down to about $117,000 at this point. But even that, I mean, that's just crazy. And he's a volunteer firefighter, and had a business that was somewhat successful, but he lost it. He's now on food stamps. He's on government housing. We got him through legal aid to get some of his money back. I mean, it was just horrible. So those are the kinds of things that happen to these guys. And so I've now made it our mission to work with these people to help them go through and hopefully, like I said, we want to help them have a better relationship at home. And if we can do that and save a life, I mean, how amazing would that be?
Man, you got a lot on your plate. So how do you relax? What is your deal? Because that's a lot of stress.
Well, I'm going to say this. When you love what you do, I have purpose. Do I love helping people get a divorce? No, but I love helping them end a relationship that's not working in as kind and as gentle a way as I can possibly help them do it, and help them move into a life that is healthier and happier, because I believe we all deserve happiness. So everybody, like, you would think that for somebody like me that this would be horrible. No, the work that I do is so impactful and makes such a difference that I feel blessed to be able to do it and honored to be able to help these people go through this in a different way, not in a way that I went through it. And if I do that by, helping them get through it, it's like, I put my head down on my pillow every night and I sleep like a baby.
Yeah. It's kind of like when I was facilitating at the church, and the 7 weeks, the first week, people are crying and they're bitching. And by the seventh week, they're doing a lot better. Just to see that transformation was like
Absolutely.
gold. And it's hard to explain to people.
It
And
is.
I got to the point where I felt guilty, but I had to tell myself, hey, I'm actually helping people, no matter how hard it is.
Well, one of the things that I will tell you that I notice time after time after time is that I'll get one of these first responders because, their head is spinning. They're up here. It's scary. The thought of this whole process is extremely scary. And they're up here and, they don't know what they don't know. And that's, the fear of the unknown is
Mm-hmm.
it can just kidnap your brain. And after just 1 hour with us, they go from here to going, okay, all right, I can do this. I had a guy, he was like, I can't get all my finances together. This is just too much. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I said, let's go through it real quickly. And it ended up that what he needed to gather ultimately was just 4 pieces of paper. And he couldn't see that it was just 4. He saw I have to get all of my finances together. He needed his mortgage statement. He needed his bank account statement. He needed his pension statement. And there was one other thing. I forget what it was, but there was 4 things. I said, can you get 4 things together? Do you think that, that's something that you can do in the next 2 weeks? And he goes, yeah, I think I can get 4 together. And he was it was like a different person by the end of the conversation. By the end of our phone call, he was a different human being and looked at the process in a very different way. But not having that support and having to do this by yourself while you're saving lives, while you're taking grandpa to the hospital, while you're picking up people out of their cars, while you've seen, these guys see children, who have, driven their cars into trees and all that other stuff. And we don't think about that. And so it impacts them. So if there's anything that I hope that comes from this is that these people need some additional supporting factors for their mental health and their well-being and their families.
What are 3 things, sign off here, what are 3 things you can tell my men over 40 to maybe have real expectations going into work, going through a divorce? What are 4 or 3 things that you could tell them that they could face and or do going into work?
Well, to minimize the impact of divorce on their work, I would say find a supporting partner. I'm a huge proponent of a divorce coach, but really experienced divorce coaches. That's another thing. Don't just find somebody that is trying to make, lemonade out of lemons, that actually understand all of the 5 different ways to divorce in this country and can kind of guide you. But the 3 things that I would say is that you're going to get where you're going to get. The laws are going to are pretty clear in that you're going to get 50-50-ish one side or another, maybe 47-53, 49-51, whatever. You're going to get there. And you can spend $100,000 getting there, or you can spend a few $1,000s getting there. The choice is yours. And allow the love you have for your children to be greater than the hate you have for your spouse, and put your children's needs ahead of your own. And then lastly, ask your employer if you don't have, so the name of my company with all of those things is called Bridgewell Care. It's bridgewell.care. If your employer doesn't have us on their employee benefits platform, have them reach out to us. We will lock arms with you. We will be your thinking partner. We will help you come and get you to the destination as close as we can that you want and need to have. Having a thinking partner would have changed my life, changed my life and changed my outcome.
Different.
For sure.
You and me both. All right, Vicky, that was fun. That was so much fun. We'll definitely have to do this again.
Yeah, definitely. This is again.
Let the people know out there how to find you. on the
So
internet?
I've got two companies. My first one is divorcerightInc.com, divorce RIGHTINC.com. And I'm Vicky with a Y. I think you see it right there. Vicky at divorcerightInc.com. Or for my holistic family first benefit package, it's bridgewell.care. That's our marriage counsel, our support, relationship support, divorce support, parenting support, and your AI app support. So please, we would love to help as many people. One last thing that I'd like to say is that we live in a culture where your next door neighbor loses the house and, oh, it's just a divorce, right? Or he lost his kids in the divorce. All of those things that I find just like so nonsensical and just where have we come? But divorce is the leading 75% of all welfare applications are as a result of divorce. It's the number one reason that women fall into poverty. It's the leading cause of all of WIC programs and after school services is because of a divorce. I think as a country, we can start to recognize when it's costing us $1 billion a day in productivity from a process that we've created that's not unlike our healthcare system. The divorce system is there's not only no financial incentive to get it completed, but there's actually a financial incentive to keep it going. And I just find that reprehensible. And I hope that everybody else here does too. So we should have a better, easier way to end relationships that aren't working.
All right, Vicky, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, David.
Hold on the line, but that was fun. Hold on the line. We'll turn it off.